You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Holy mackerel, gang, it's episode 250 of the Soulforge podcast.
Welcome to the Soulforge, a place of silent mystery, quiet contemplation, and outright mayhem. Join your host, Sean Vanderloo, as he guides you through the adventures of living. Together, we'll talk about life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss, and so much more. Don't worry, it's not nearly as pretentious as it sounds. Get ready for life, the universe, and everything on the Soulforge.
Welcome to the show. My name is Sean. This is episode 250 of the Soulforge. If this is your first time at the Forge, welcome to it. If you're a long-time listener, thanks for coming back again week after week. It's great to have you here again. So what are we doing this week? Well, we're having a bit of a celebration of all things Soulforgy. Well, not really. Kind of, maybe, sort of. Going to do several top 10 lists of some of my favorite things. What else do we want to talk about before we get into the main part of the podcast? Let me think. Well, it's been just over 6 weeks since I moved back to Sault Ste. Marie. Am I enjoying my mail route? No, my mail route in Timmins was better. But whatever, I'm getting my 25,000 steps in a day, so that's good. I don't need to go to the gym. The weather's getting better, so that's good. Going camping this weekend because it's the May long weekend. Going with my brother Curtis and a couple of his buddies, so that'll be fun. If there's not an episode next week, it's because I died in a bear attack or something. But if there is an episode next week, then I guess I survived. So, yay. Okay, I guess I'm in a weird mood. I don't know. After I'm done recording this episode, it's time to record our 2-year anniversary episode for the Cosmic Pizza Podcast. That'll be out in, a few weeks, because we're always a little bit ahead on that show. But are you listening to the Cosmic Pizza Podcast with Paul and Dan and me? And I, the three of us? I don't know. We also do the Epsilon 3 podcast where we review episodes of Babylon 5. So if you like to hear two British guys and a Canadian half-ass their podcasting episodes, check those out. Or just listen to Soulforge where I half-ass all my episodes. Anyway, I don't even know what I'm talking about. It must have been a good day because I'm in a funky mood. So, I have got some top 10 lists here that I wrote down yesterday, and I guess what we'll do is just get into it, really. The main thing that I started with was the top 10 either best or favorite podcast episodes of the Soulforge over the last almost 5 years. So I'm going to save that till the end. What I'm going to start with is my top 10 favorite authors. And these aren't in any particular order. I guess I could have, but that's too difficult. I don't know. So let's go with top 10 authors. Do you know any of these people? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Do you want to talk about authors? soulforgepodcast@gmail.com. So anyway, the first one on my list is Matthew Riley. And he is an Australian guy. And he's written 2 main series, I believe the Jack West Jr. series and the Shane Schofield series. They're really, really good. I'm waiting for the last book in the Jack West series to come out. It's all action adventure. It's really, really good. He actually, Matthew Riley himself, directed a movie coming to Netflix June 3rd called Interceptor. Looking forward to that. And it's fast-paced action adventure kind of novels. So if you're into that, there you go. Next on the list is Clive Cussler. I used to read all of his stuff, but then he came out with like a book every week and I just couldn't keep up anymore. But I've read over 40 of his books. Basically, it takes place in and around and under the ocean. Dirk Pitt is his main character, and it's action adventure as well, and lots of fun. They made a movie of one of his books with Matthew McConaughey in the role of Dirk Pitt, Sahara. It was nothing like the book, so don't recommend it. But anyway, there you go. And then we've got Robert J. Sawyer, who I actually interviewed on my old podcast, The Rusted Robot, and met him a few years ago at DragonCon.
Hi, my name's Robert J. Sawyer. I'm an award-winning science fiction writer, and you're listening to the Rusted Robot podcast. Don't forget to follow them on Twitter.
He's Canadian. He's sci-fi. All of his books are very different from each other. No main characters throughout, but it's always speculative, futuristic science fiction from a Canadian perspective. Really great stuff. And then we've got Mitch Albom, and he is more of a literature type writer. He wrote Tuesdays with Maury, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, The First Phone Call from Heaven, all kinds of really introspective stuff. And his books are so easily readable, you could do them in a matter of hours, really. So, highly recommend. Somebody I recently came across, Paulo Coelho, I'm not sure how you say his last name exactly, but he wrote The Alchemist, which is probably his most famous book. I've been going through a 10-pack of books that I got not from him, but by him there a while back. I'm about halfway through those. Very introspective, and you often see memes attributed to him, quotes and witty things that he said. So really good stuff. And then there's Lee Child, also kind of action adventure-y. He's the guy who writes the Jack Reacher series. He just had that show on Amazon this past spring, Reacher. Really good stuff. It's 25-ish books that he's written, all with the same character. Pretty much the plot in every book is the exact same, but different things happen. Lots of good stuff. So I would recommend Lee Child books to anybody who likes action adventure. Then we've got Stephen Baxter. He's a British guy. Half the books that he's written I don't understand, but the other half are really, really good. Mostly science fiction. I think he's written some with, was it Terry Pratchett? I think so. But yeah, lots of weird, really out there woo-woo science fiction stuff. Some of it I read and could barely understand it, and other stuff was so readable it was amazing. So I like him. Stephen Baxter. Then we got Andy McDermott, who is kind of like Matthew Riley. He writes the same characters. What's that? Nina Chase, or Eddie Chase and Nina Wilde. Basically, Nina is a archaeologist of some kind, and Eddie's her bodyguard, boyfriend, husband / thing, and she's discovered all the mythological things. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've read them, but high-paced action-adventure stuff. And then we've got Mark Manson, and he wrote the book, I wish I had it here with me right now, Everything is Fucked, or something like that, and then there's a sequel that I've got that I haven't read yet, but I've read a lot of online articles from that guy, and he tells it like it is, and he doesn't pull any punches, and it's really good stuff. And then last on the list here, I have Brené Brown. She's kind of also self-help kind of person. She wrote The Gifts of Imperfection, and her latest book is Atlas of the Heart, Mapping Meaningful Connection and the Language of Human Experience. So there you go. Those are, I guess, my top 10 favorite authors. There's probably other ones that I could have put in place of certain other ones, but for the most part, those are the ones that I really like.
If you're loving this podcast, you should tell a friend about it.
Spread the word about podcasts you think they would enjoy. There's something for everyone, from entertainment and lifestyle
To news and politics
and more. Share it on social media.
Believe it or not, some people don't know how great podcasts are.
or even how to find and listen to them.
You can help change that with a click. Tell your friends about your favorite podcast.
Thanks for spreading the word.
And moving on, let's talk about favorite movies. So let's see what I've got here on my list. And for the most part, these are my, I would say, top 10 favorite movies in no particular order. First on the list that I wrote down was The Big Lebowski. That's a late 90s movie from the Coen brothers, starring Jeff Bridges as the dude. And when I first saw this movie, I couldn't stand it. And then I watched it again, and it really grew on me, and now it's one of my favorites. It's got... who's it got? It's got Jeff Bridges, it's got John Goodman, Steve Buscemi, all kinds of different people. It's really, really good. That's why I started drinking White Russians. And then we've got The Shawshank Redemption, and everybody knows The Shawshank Redemption from 1994, based on a Stephen King either short story or a book or something. Andy Dufresne crawls through a river of shit and comes out clean on the other side, and it's got Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman and all kinds of other people. It's really, really good. And then we've got, from 1956, Forbidden Planet. And that's based on a Shakespeare play, and it's science fiction. It's got a really young Leslie Nielsen in a serious role. It's got the Id Monster. It introduces Robbie the Robot.
Can I be of service, sir?
Really great. Great film. Love it. Then we've got, from 1997, Con Air. Nicolas Cage on a plane. What more can I say? Full of great quotes and action scenes. And is it the greatest movie in the world? No. Is it my favorite? Probably. I just absolutely love it. Have to watch it every July 14th.
My daddy is coming home on July 14th. My birthday is July 14th. I'm going to see my daddy for the first time ever on July 14th. Make a move and the bunny gets it.
And then we've got District 9, which I believe came out in 2009-ish. It's from Neil Blomkamp. It's aliens over Johannesburg, and there's the prawns, and Wickus is turning into an alien, and all kinds of stuff. Really great film. From 1968, we've got the original Planet of the Apes, with probably the best cinematic reveal at the end of the movie in cinema history, I would think. Really great. From 1984, we've got The Last Starfighter. I've talked about it lots on various podcasts and stuff. And basically a kid plays a video game, and he's recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier. And he gets taken to space, and hijinks ensue, and lots of fun. From 1987, we've got RoboCop. Dead or Alive, You're Coming With Me. Great film. Holds up. It's fantastic. I'd buy that for $1. All that stuff. And then from 1995, I believe, we've got Braveheart. Mel Gibson as William Wallace. It's an epic fantasy type thing, but it's based on real events, but apparently it's all not real, so it's kind of like fantasy. I don't know. It's great. It's lots of fun. And then finally on the list is Terminator 2 from 1991. Better than the original, better than anything that came after it. Just so rewatchable. I love it. And then there's lots more I could have put on here, like, of course, Star Trek First Contact, my favorite Star Trek movie, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and there's other stuff, but I was putting it down to my top 10. All right, so let's now move on to my top 10 ex-girlfriends. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do, though, is play a promo for another podcast right here on the ESO Network.
In the Cosmic Pizza Podcast, your pizza delivery guys, Dan, Sean and Paul, serve you a slice of life. We talk to women in comedy, voice actors, film directors and producers, authors. We also talk about conspiracy theories, the Muppets, our top 3 films of the decades, famous people we confuse with each other, and our favourite stand-up comedians. We have recast Star Trek the Original Series and Babylon 5, and created our alternative superheroes. But most of all, we have had so much fun doing it every 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
The Cosmic Pizza Podcast is not about the cosmos or about pizza.
And we're back. And wasn't that a lovely promo for the Cosmic Pizza Podcast? Like I said earlier, go check it out. My podcasting brother in arms, Paul and Dan. And actually, for my top 10 favorite authors, I could have put Daniel Peter Hitch on there too. He writes Bubbles the Pirate book series and all that kind of good stuff. And you should be checking him out.
Hello, I'm Daniel Peter Hitch, author of the Bubbles the Pirate children's book series and the Connected Worlds Chronicles. You're listening to the Soul Forge podcast. Keep forging your soul.
So let's now move on to my top 10 favorite TV shows. And this was actually difficult to come up with. The last few I wasn't 100% sure about. Babylon 5. Great television series from the 1990s. Came out, I believe, 93, 94. Lasted 5 seasons. It's just fantastic. If you want to know more, check out the Epsilon 3 podcast, where we talk about every episode week to week. And then next on the list, of course, is Star Trek. And there's like 10 or 11 series, so I didn't write them all down. I'm just saying Star Trek as a whole. It's awesome. I love it. Got to watch them all. Probably Deep Space Nine is my favorite, also crossed with The Next Generation. That's a toss-up, but Strange New Worlds just premiered there a few weeks ago, and it is fantastic as well. Next on the list is Thundercats, a cartoon from the 80s, which I was absolutely obsessed with. Thunder, Thunder, Thundercats, ho! Lion-O and all the rest, on Third Earth and Mum-Ra and the Mutants and all that kind of good stuff. I've got it all on DVD, and it's cheesy as heck, but it's still great. And then from the same era, G.I. Joe. He's a real American hero. Love that cartoon. Next on the list is Battlestar Galactica, the reboot from, I believe, 2004, roughly. Lasted, I think, 4 seasons. The Cylons, the Battlestar, the Vipers. So good, so good. One of the best series finales that they've ever done. I highly recommend it. Go watch it. Battlestar Galactica. And then, of course, from the late 70s, early 80s, we've got the Dukes of Hazzard. Yeehaw! The General Lee and all that stuff. And yeah, it's probably not politically correct and maybe it doesn't hold up so good. But I had to watch it obsessively when I was a kid. It's the first thing I would turn on when I came home from school. The Dukes of Hazzard. Yeah, oh boy. Good stuff. A fairly recent show is Hell on Wheels, and that I highly recommend. It's great. It was originally on the AMC channel, and to describe it, it sounds like it's absolutely boring. It's basically a railroad camp in the 1860s trying to build the railway across the United States from east to west and west to east, and then they're supposed to meet up in the middle. And that sounds boring, but it's 5 seasons of drama and conflict and all kinds of stuff. And it stars Anson Mount, who is also in Star Trek Strange New Worlds as Captain Pike. And I'm not the only one who has a huge man crush on this guy. I've been hearing all over the podcasts that I listen to that everybody's got a man crush on Anson Mount. So Hell on Wheels, go check it out. You'll be glad you did. And then the last 3 on my list, I wasn't 100% sure about because I was running out of favorites, I guess. But Lost, and then Quantum Leap, and recently The Mandalorian. Although I could have put on The Walking Dead and Stranger Things, and I've been going through Amazon Prime and watching The Greatest American Hero, and that's really good, even though it's cheesy and 40 years old. So there's lots, but those are pretty much the main TV shows that I really enjoy and would highly recommend. And I guess what we'll do now is we'll talk about the 10 best or my favorite episodes of the podcast that I've produced over the last 5 years. And I'm just going in backwards order because that's how I was looking it up when I checked it out on the website there yesterday. I'm going to say that the first one is episode 227 called SHTF, Survival Prepping. That's where I talked about getting into the survival prepping journey and the supplies that I wanted to get and all the YouTube shows that I was watching about how to prepare for emergencies and disasters and the end times and all that kind of stuff. I think that's when I was majorly depressed, but that's beside the point. It was a good episode. I had a lot of fun doing it. A few weeks before that was episode 223, The 5 Love Languages. And that's a fun episode. Talk about my love languages and what I've learned about that. So that's good. That's a fun one. 199 is called When Good Things End. And that is basically the final episode of the Rusted Robot podcast that I did. I did that for over 7 years because I had put so much heart and soul into it for all that time. I had put everything I could think of into the final episode, talking about my podcast journey. I put in all kinds of audio clips and sound clips that I couldn't use again because, well, I'm not doing that podcast anymore. So episode 199 is basically the final episode of The Rusted Robot, and that's a fun episode. Episode 160, called Robots, Replicas, and You, Simulation or Reality. That's when I had downloaded the Replica app and was really thinking about if we're living in a simulation or not, and is reality real, all that kind of stuff. So that was a well-researched and fun episode. Episode 142 was called The List, and that was me writing down the list of qualities that I was looking for in a partner. So that was very revealing. Episode 132 is called Unapologetically Me, and that's basically where I lay it all out on the line and say who I am as a person and all that kind of stuff. Episode 129 was a fun one that I did with my brother Robin and two lady friends of ours, and it's called Masturbation, a Handy Guide, because it's funny and clever, and it was the four of us talking about our experiences and stuff, and I've been told by people who have listened that it's really good. So check that out, episode 129. Episode 105 was called Time Slice Witnesses, and that was one that I did with my friend Stephanie. We did like 4 or 5 for the weekend that she was there, and I released them 5 apart from each other, and that was just a fun one. And then early in the show, episode 22 was called Simple Pleasures, and the reason for that was, it was beginning. I think it was the fall or early winter, and when there's no snow, but all the puddles start to freeze over, and then in the morning you can step on them and they break and they sound like glass. And I'm like, that reminds me of my childhood, and that's a simple pleasure. And on that episode, I think I recruited all kinds of different people, got their simple pleasures, and put it into just a big episode. So that was fun. And then finally on the list is episode 13 called Road Trip Questions. And that's actually a recording from before the podcast even came out. But back in 2017 sometime, me and my brother Curtis and my brother Robin, we went down to Cedar Point, and I had my recording equipment with me, and for about an hour or so they grilled me with all kinds of weird and wacky questions, and it was a lot of fun. And if you want to know more about me, then episode 13 is for you. And then I've got an honorable mention, episode 8, 3 wishes, and that's basically what I would do if I was granted 3 wishes. Those are my top 10/11 favorite or highly recommended episodes of the podcast, my favorite TV shows, my favorite movies, and favorite authors. I could have done favorite songs as well, or a bunch of other different things. But if there's more top 10 lists that you can think of that you think I should do, feel free to send me an email, soulforgepodcast@gmail.com. If you go to TikTok and look up Soulforge Podcast, you'll find me in all my funky videos. I'm having a big pile of fun, a blast with that. That's all very... Is it cool? I don't know if it's cool. I would never call myself cool, but I'm having fun doing it. And if I'm just amusing myself, then there's that as well. So that's all good. And other than that, this has been episode 250, a celebration of top 10 lists and all things me, basically. And who doesn't want to celebrate themselves, right? There you go. So anyway, take care of yourselves and each other. And I'm going to go camping this weekend, and you know what? Maybe there won't be an episode next week just because I'll take a break, but there might be. I just don't know. So anyway, go check out my TikTok because I could always use some more followers over there. Other than that, yeah, have a great long weekend. Go have some fun. And until next time, remember, you're not doing it wrong if no one knows what you're doing. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Soulforge Podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we hope you'll tune in again next time. Remember that you can visit soulforgepodcast.com for all of our social media links, and don't forget to share the show with everyone you know. The Soulforge Podcast is your best source for living your best life.
Think about it.
You're gonna bust the record. But it wasn't just any game. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.